from the All Indiana Podcast Network.
It's time for real conversation about the real issues that affect our communities.
Poverty, education, equality, and more.
This is Real Talk.
Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Welcome. This is Real Talk on the All Indiana Podcast Network, and I'm Reverend Charles Harrison. And on this episode, we're going to talk about whether or not the Christian church today is compromised because it is so influenced by culture and by politics that many of us who are a part of the Christian church put those things, culture and politics, even over the Bible and the teachings of Jesus Christ. Join me today in this exciting conversation. Welcome to Real Talk on the All Indiana Podcast Network, and this is Reverend Charles Harrison, and welcome to the podcast today. I have two very special guests with me today, and we're going to deal with a really hard subject that, has really been on my heart for a while now, and that is, and we get into several different discussions, but I was talking to someone last night, and we were having a debate last night about whether or not the Christian church is compromised, and particularly the black church, whether we're compromised by culture and politics, that culture and politics has compromised the Christian church, and it has become our new God. What? Well, we're going to talk about that today. I have two friends with me today. Annette Johnson, who is the trustee for Pike Township, and John Hall, who is the former deputy mayor of Indianapolis under Mayor Stephen Goldsmith. And that's when I met him, when I became the pastor of Barnes United Methodist Church. Amen. And we are so glad to have both of them with us today. And let's kind of talk about this, John and Annette, because this is really a hot topic. There was a black pastor who did a sermon on this just recently. It went viral on social media as he started talking about that in the pulpit on Sunday morning, and he basically said to his congregation that he believes the church has compromised itself. And certainly that culture and politics has become the new God. And he used another term in there. He added another term. He said blackness. So he said blackness and politics and culture now has become the new God. That the new Jesus is politics. For white Christians, it has become the Republican Party. For black Christians, it has become the Democratic Party. And the cultural issues now are driving what Christians believe, and blackness for us and whiteness for the white community. So let's kind of get into this conversation today. And I'm speaking as a pastor. I am the senior pastor of Barnes United Methodist Church here in Indianapolis. I've been here for 31 years. I've been pastoring now for 39 years. I know I look too young to be in ministry for 39 years, but I've been pastoring for 39 years. And I have seen a dramatic shift because I started very young. I was 17 years old when I first received my call into the ministry. And back in those days, church was full on Sunday morning, and church was kind of still the center of black society and driving to some degree the cultural values of our time. That has dramatically changed in my lifetime, dramatically changed. I think the church is way, way out in left field now, and it's certainly not the center of our society. And where is the Christian faith and the church, and has it been compromised for those of us who are Christians? So John, we'll start with you. What do you think? What do you think?
Well, I think that the notion that church and state ought to be separated has been breached.
Okay.
And what that has caused here especially in politics and councils and Congress, is such a division that you can't get work done, work that would benefit the country.
Right, right.
Students need to learn.
Right.
We need to feed more people.
Right.
We need to protect our borders.
Right.
We need to do defense around the world.
Right.
But we're fighting over the right and the left.
Okay.
And it has taken a great deal of time. Now, just quickly, the civil rights movement began in the church.
Right.
And maybe that's where we have parlayed our thoughts about freedom and justice. The church was instrumental in breaking through those barriers.
Right.
And so that now probably has carried on, that now we believe that politics may be stronger than Jesus.
Right.
Maybe I need to play in the political game so I can enhance myself. I can win some freedoms or some rights. And that has become the drive rather than modeling what we believe is the teachings that we should follow.
Yeah, because I think, I always saw myself, and I thought that was the motto, Annette. The pastor, I thought, had a couple of functions. One was the spiritual leader involved in social issues, so spiritual, social, and political, in the sense that I think the role the church has played in the advancement of the cause of Black Americans really goes back to slavery.
Okay.
And in most cases, the preacher may have been the most educated person on the plantation and played a leadership role, But basically, I think during those days, going through slavery, Jim Crow, civil rights movement, the church and the cultural values were similar. It's been a dramatic shift today, in my opinion. What do you think, Annette?
I agree. I think it's been a traumatic shift. I mean, I was raised, where politics and church was together, because that's where you got a lot of your information.
Right.
And I always looked at church as the area where you have the mass numbers of people there.
Right.
So just imagine every Sunday across the country, across the state, pastors such as you are conducting your services, and you have that audience.
Right.
And to me, that audience is what you need to get your message across. So no other or better place for us to learn social issues, political issues, would be right there in the church. So I always felt comfortable with making sure that even at my church, I make it a point where I am the political chair for my church. And so that is my role. And that is what the pastor has deemed on us, because he's the pastor that understands we have an audience that we can reach. Bring the politicians to our churches. Bring them here to speak, because where else are they going to see these? They're not going to see these individuals unless they're very involved in politics. Everybody's not a politician. Everybody's not involved in politics, such as we are. So we keep abreast of. We wake up in the morning looking at the news, making sure we know what's going on. But I would say individuals, they're not that educated.
Well, I think the challenge that we face today, what do we do when cultural trends, political viewpoints seem to be in opposition to the teachings of Christ and the Bible? What do we do? And what do we do as Christians? What do we do? Because should the political worldview drive us, or are we driven by the biblical worldview of the teachings of Jesus? And I see that as the area of tension today when it comes to what's popular in culture. My children, I have 4 of them, see the world totally different than me and my wife. So what used to be right is now wrong. What used to be wrong is now right. I mean, that's where we are today. And I see it in politics. I see it in culture. And, I think the church struggles because the culture is much different today, and so if we preach the old time, sermons that for some was very fundamental, strictly if the Bible said it, it was right, and that's what drove us. Today, when you preach that, it tends to run people away because they have a different view of God and the world than us. And I see that in the church on both sides, particularly politically. There are things I think we see in the platform of the Republican Party that seems to be in opposition to the Bible. We see it on the Democratic side. There seems to be opposition to the Bible. But we seem to don't care. The political viewpoint is what tends to drive a lot of us Christians, and has the Republican Party and the Democratic Party become Jesus. Well, I know this is tough, so we might as well get into it. This is tough to have a real conversation. Has the Democratic Party and the Republican Party for Christians become Jesus?
Well, I'm a strong Democrat. I would say it's up to the believer. It's up to the individual to know to separate it. Okay. And so you're right. It's the social media. Just everything is out in the open now. Right. Television, social media, these platforms, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. You see so much stuff. It influences people tremendously. Right. And I think that's where our problems are. We're influenced tremendously by the social media. Mm-hmm. And so you have to take to heart your inner self. I run into people now and you'll ask them if they're in the church. Most of them, I'm spiritual. Well, what does that mean? You're spiritual. So that's letting me know right now I'm spiritual. I don't need the church to tell me right from wrong. Right. But it's hard because you have in politics, we get to a level now where it's all about greed and power. Okay. That is it. Everyone wants the power. Okay. And that's how I look at it. When you're thinking about, politics, it's not about the people. It's about the power. Okay. And so we have to get individuals in there that are still have the foundation and are grounded, and it's about the people. The people put you in here. It should always be about the people, not the power. And so power has really, I would say, is at a high end where that's all most of these politicians think about. What's going to make them successful? Right. What's going to take them to the next level? They don't care about the people or the issues and things that are at hand that are very important. And like you said, it's just causing a wedge because we're just comfortable with anything now.
Well, you are an elected official, and I'm going to ask you, where do you make the distinction between a policy and your religious viewpoints? How do you deal with that as an elected official when it comes to what you believe as a Christian, what the Bible teaches, but what may be a popular policy that may differ from what the Bible teaches, particularly the teachings of Jesus?
Well, I think that's where we run into the complications because you're an elected official, and so you have to represent the people. Right. What do the people want? Right. And I think we saw that in Obama's administration. Okay. When we did the gay marriages and all this, partners and things. He had to make a decision. A lot of people fought him for that, and they still fought him for that, for being so open, talking about, I don't care what a person, who they're attracted to or who they're married. Because if you're representing a group of people, you have to represent that group too as well. Now, what you can do is make sure that you let it be known where you stand. Right. Now, this is where I stand. Okay. And unfortunately, I'm representing a group. And I think if you do it like that, that helps tremendously. But a lot of times these politicians, they don't even do that. They hide behind it. Okay. And so you don't know. You don't know. Yeah, but you have to be vocal. You cannot be ashamed of the gospel. Right. That's what you're a believer in. Right. And so that's how I kind of maneuvered through it. Okay. John, what do you think? You've been in it a long time. You got out of it. You've been retired. But when I first met you, you were very involved in politics on the other side of the political aisle as a Republican. Correct.
Toby free now.
Okay, Toby free now.
Jefferson, when they formed the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, they wanted to make sure that the wall between church and state stayed separate.
Okay.
Because as we discussed today,
Right.
Yeah.
the United States is not a Christian nation.
Right.
However,
I'm listening to him.
there are different groups.
Right.
Exactly.
Judaism,
Mm-hmm.
Islam,
Right.
Hinduism. So how do we have a democracy with the multiple beliefs that we have
Right.
and make it work? And I would say the way we've made it work is that we've kept that wall, that separation apart. So that, we're not trying to shape society
Right.
in a Christian mold per se.
Right.
But, we are trying to do, I think, what Annette Johnson has talked about is that the people's will, the people's desire,
Right.
along with what makes sense, what can move the nation forward, is where we ought to be trying to work. But go ahead.
I hear what you're saying, but the separation only seems to be one-sided. It is the church that these elected officials come to get votes, to get them elected. So they want the separation on one end, but on the other end, it is the churches and the mosque and the synagogues is where they go to make speeches so that they get votes. So as I'm sitting in the pew on Sunday morning and I'm listening to your pitch, where does my faith come in as I listen to you and your pitch about what your platform is to get elected, regardless of what side you're on? I think I struggle with the fact if it's going to be separated, it's separated, but it's not separated during the campaign season. It is the elected official. Yeah, they're coming to the church to get the votes, but yet on the other end, they want it separate when it comes to the moral teachings of these different faiths, whether it be Christianity, whether it be Islam or your Buddhist or Judaism. You want that to be separate, but you want to come in and make your pitch to get the votes.
But see, I think they want to come in to get the votes so that we can be successful with all of the platforms that are out there.
Yeah, but if the platform contradicts the teachings of the Bible, that becomes the issue. So if you're going to separate it, why not separate it? Why are you trying to infringe on the church when it's convenient for you to get votes, but yet you don't want the biblical principles of the church to govern policy?
I just think that's going to be hard. That's a hard pill to swallow because
I know.
There's too many different religions out here.
Right.
So the individual is coming as a political figure to share what they can do for all of us that are involved, whether you be Methodist, Protestant, Quaker, Baptist, Apostolic, all of that. And so I don't think that as elected officials or politicians, they're so much focusing on the religion of what your belief is. It's what's going to work for the whole betterment of the...
But why come to the church?
That's where people are.
Okay, so they come where the people are, but the issue becomes if you come to a Christian church and your policies contradict what the church teaches, then what do you do as a Christian who is sitting in the pew and what you hear Pastor Hall preach is different from what Trustee Johnson's platform is?
I just think it's going to be complicated again because no one's going to be perfect. Everybody's going to have their different belief systems and things like that. So say there's 20 things on the plate. Right. And so I can't get 2 of them right, Harrison, but I got all 18. Right. Then we're hoping that you will believe in us. Right. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get all 20 of them correct or right in your eyes. But I got 18. So isn't that a better number 18 out of 20. So I kind of.
Well, if it's that high, I doubt if they're that high. Might be 2 out of 20. When it comes to you try. Yeah, this is a good conversation. Go ahead, John.
Well, 80 years ago,
right.
all you had to do was to get the pastor, the minister,
right,
convinced, and you tell him,
right.
Harrison, you get them to vote for me.
Right.
And he'd get up on a Sunday morning and say, Annette Johnson is the one. And the congregation, 90% of the congregation would go with it. But now, because of Annette's pointing us out, social media, all other types of communication, that's not possible. Or how many
what's not possible now?
How many ministers now can get up in the pulpit and command his congregation to go vote for John Hall?
Oh, I think you can in the black church if it's a black Democrat.
Yeah, but look at the little tags you put on that.
But I'm being honest. So if you go into a evangelical church, in rural America, and you say vote for John Hall, the Republican, there's a good chance that a large percentage of them are going to vote for John Hall, the Republican, based on certain issues. So I think that's how it goes. So, but my question becomes, if I'm sitting in that church and the pastor says vote for John Hall, what if what John Hall believes is different from my biblical worldview? What do I do as a Christian?
It depends on
okay.
how many disbelieves. He may just say he may not believe in gay marriages.
Okay.
Or say an African American church.
Okay.
We're pretty strict on gay marriages. I
don't know if we are anymore.
I mean, we don't. Well, we tend to say, we're going by our belief in the Bible,
right.
Adam, Eve.
Right.
So we are against the gay.
Okay.
So you get up there and you say that, but you're going to have individuals that are in your church, and that's what they are. And so we don't drive them out of the church,
right.
But we speak that we are against it.
Right.
And so when you have elected officials come in, again, they only can speak for themselves.
Okay.
Again, they want to be the elected person, and I'm just saying that it may be 20 things, and I just don't get 2 of them right. So what are we going to do? Okay,
and that's what I'm asking you as a believer.
You're not going to be.
That's why I'm asking you as a believer. At what point, as a Christian, what is it that you believe as a Christian? Because if they get in and then they are advocating something that is against your values as a believer, then what do you do? So this is more so, and I think this is the dilemma that the Christians and Muslims and Jews are facing today, is this whole challenge of wanting to be involved in politics, but then here's my faith and what I believe about God and what I believe about the teachings of God. Go ahead, John. I see you pulling up.
I think you all are covering it, but the hypocrisy that we do in religion.
Okay.
That we believe in God.
Okay.
We follow Jesus as Christians and other prophets, but we don't like this one.
Right.
And I think our younger generation are seeing that dualism that we have.
Right.
We say we love,
right,
but we don't love everybody.
Right.
And there is, I think, one of the factors that the religion is declining. But to answer your question, I think each individual has to make up his mind. In a democracy, that's what we do.
Right.
We got to make up with mind. I've heard Annette's platform. I've got to decide, does this fit with what I believe?
Right.
And am I going to vote for her?
Right.
But I think that's an individual piece. What I see now coming, and it's interesting here in Indiana.
Right.
Now, we've got a candidate that, typically our tradition here in Indiana, the governor would pick his lieutenant governor to run with him.
Right.
That's how we've done it for years and years and years.
Right.
But this time we had a candidate who is aligned with that national Christian movement, ran, got elected, got selected. And so now, does he try to reshape policy? Does he try to influence his Christian beliefs and make our laws fit that? That movement is national.
Right.
And I've even heard people tell me that Jesus was a chump if he turned his other cheek. Right. That's not who we following.
Right.
And so it has gotten to, now that's an extreme.
It is. But there are people, and I agree with you, John, who may believe that. But as an individual, what is it you believe when it comes to your faith? And because I think it's greater than politics. I think it's in the culture itself today. I think everything. I think cultures have also driving politics, and in some ways politics drives culture. I don't think the church is driving anything today, whether it's the church, the synagogue, or the Islamic faith is driving American culture today. I think it's politics.
The nationalist Christian movement is driving and wants to reshape society. I think there needs to be a wall between religion and beliefs and secular government.
I don't disagree with that, but I would say that politicians need to stop coming in the church. If you want the wall there, let's put the wall there. And I think individual believers in the congregation has to make up their own mind between what it is they believe in their faith, because as individuals, we all have to answer to the maker ourselves. So when I stand before God, it is about the decisions that I made and how I practice my faith. And I don't have a problem with that, because I have done, as a pastor, less allowing politicians to come in, because I'm trying to separate and create that wall, because my members are going to vote for who they vote for. For me now, it's more about, is it lining up with my faith and what I believe?
What would be your role, Pastor? What are ministers' roles? As Annette pointed out, what is it that then you should do if you don't want politicians coming to the church and presenting their platforms? What is the role of the leader of the church?
I think the role of the leader is to encourage our members to be voters that are well informed. And that you have to be well informed. There's enough stuff that comes on TV and on social media that you see every day from all of these politicians.
Is it true?
Yeah. Well, but the question is, when they come to your church, is what they're saying true?
Yeah, but at least you have them there in front of you.
No, I think there has to be a separation, because Jesus said you cannot serve two masters.
Right.
And if in my opinion, the new idols that we worship today is politics.
Well, that's where they're leadership.
And they have become, John, if we're being honest, who's the new Jesus in the black community?
Well, like John said, then that's where the leader of the church would step in, his role as the political overseer, to say, we had such and such at our church last Sunday. You are more than welcome to ask questions at the church and talk to that individual. This is what
But why the church? Why the church?
Because, again,
I don't think Jesus would have allowed that. I think we do today.
Jesus did say,
was all in there.
No, he was not. No, and that was concerning taxes.
Yeah, but to me, that sounds like government. That sounds like a part of the government.
Well, he said as Christians, Christians could not ignore the laws of government. government.
Exactly.
Yes. So that just because I'm a Christian, I can't disobey the traffic laws, disobey the tax laws, and all of those things. Right. You cannot do that. I think we compromise it because now it has even pitted Christians against Christians.
I just think that you want to have, as the leader in your congregation, your neighborhood, because the churches are in these large neighborhoods, you have a lot of power. Just because the elected official or politician comes in your church, that doesn't make it any less degrading for Christians. What you are a pastor, associate pastor can do is that's where you come together and say, this is what we're going to do.
But why the church? Again, y'all want to put up the wall when it comes to the government.
I said because why not? Why should they?
Because you raised the question.
Where do you want them to go?
If the Bible teaches certain things, but yet we don't want to impose Christian views on the larger society. That because we are a society today that represents believers, atheists, Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, Jews, all of us have different religious beliefs. All of us do. We believe in a higher being, but yet our beliefs are different.
I would go even further than that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Harrison, I think the church should be a platform for the political landscape. That's what I believe, and I believe the churches.
Because you're a politician,
right? I believe the churches should also.
You want to get
be the doormat. All these churches should have voter registration and have a voting poll.
Yeah, because what it does is it helps get people elected.
I just want the people to be engaged.
But what if it differs from the teachings of the Bible?
Again, that's where that person, that's the leader of the church. You're with those people every Sunday. Yes. You mean to tell me out of 52 weeks in a year that you can't use your teachings and your expertise and your leadership and your role to make sure this is what we're going to do? My
role as the pastor is to make sure John Hall is living a life that is pleasing unto God.
What you're going to do for the 50. We only vote 2 times a year. But
my concern is that
you got 50 weeks
is that he is living the life of Christ.
And that's what you're going to do for 50 weeks.
That's the problem because what I believe is not only a political issue. I believe that Satan is in the midst of that, and he's trying to sway. Well, he is, Annette. He's trying to sway because you are coming to my church because you want to win an election and be in power. Remember what you just said when you first came,
right? But look at me. I'm coming so that individuals can vet me out.
But
they get to talk to me.
They're vetting you out on social media.
I leave my information with them.
Okay.
I'm very transparent. I'm sharing. So if Annette will have her different pinpoint her things, what her policy procedures are going to be, and what I'm not going to do. And it's going to get where you have to make sure people know what you're about. And so, again, as the leader and the shepherd of the church, you have a great role where you can intervene and say, we allowed this particular individual to come. We get to view her stuff. We get to see what she's doing. I just think we got to get us engaged. Why is our voting percentage so low? Because we got
people, just like why people don't go to church, why people don't go to church and why people don't vote
because it's too much controversy.
Because people have lost faith.
Yeah, too much controversy. Now everybody wants to say we can't do this, we can't do that.
People have lost faith because
then it's not going to get any better.
What politicians say they're going to do, they don't do.
And you know what?
Most politicians
got an opportunity
are loyal to their party and not to the people.
Not to get them out.
And that's why people don't do it.
Are European American churches the same model as African Americans?
Sure, they are now. That's where they learned it from. Sure, they are. Sure, they are. That's why you have the same problem on the other side, and it's a problem on the other side. So when we talk about
to the forefront, when Dr. King brought all that to the forefront.
Well,
when he was running.
We had to at that point because
why we can't continue to have
because what the church believed and what the movement was about was consistent with the teachings of Jesus.
Sir. I mean, that's
but and in my opinion, that's not the case anymore.
But then you make the case as the shepherds and the leaders
matter
of the church.
Matter of fact, it wasn't the politicians who were the leaders. The politicians came to the preachers and sat underneath the preachers. Now we have a society where the politicians want the preachers to sit under them rather than the other way around, because we were driving the teachings of Jesus. Dr. King's movement was based on the teachings of Jesus.
Well, when you have all these different groups that are faith-based, then that's where you would utilize your power through your faith-based movements.
Well, but we're making an argument. My concern is that there is, when we look at this whole issue, is what I'm teaching John them on Sunday morning is about doing the Jesus thing. Amen. Doing the Jesus thing and following the teachings of Jesus. And that's where my focus is. Now, who John decides to vote for when it comes to the election is based on John's own theological views and your worldview. I would hope that his theological views drives his worldviews.
You know what I think? I just think as leaders in the church and the shepherds, that's where your doctrines come in at.
Right.
Keep teaching those doctrines. Right. Make sure we're up on Sunday mornings. You go through that doctrine. We used to do that back in the day. You read that and you believed in that. That's what... that's the inner portion of you. But if we don't keep reinforcing, I do agree we have gotten a lot of relaxed in our churches, but where's the foundation? Where's the reinforcements? Keep the foundation there. Keep the reinforcements. And I think the people will...
Because one of the things that John, he often reminds me of this is that, Jesus was about love. Mm-hmm. Okay, he was about love. He was about forgiveness. He was about kindness, and we talk about exhibiting that. But when the political piece comes in, all of that goes out the window. Amen. It goes out the window. So then, if it goes out the window, then the political piece becomes your God, rather than the teachings of Jesus. And if we had that, then you wouldn't have the mess going on in the politics of America today.
It's going to be hard.
If people put because people are not putting their Christianity above their politics.
With some Christianity type elected officials, if we can't be supportive of them.
Well, some of them are not Christian. So we have to be honest about that. Some of them are not Christian. Some of them are not trying to be Christian. Some of them are trying to get elected.
I just think it's hard on elected officials that are trying to do the right thing.
But I think people recognize those who are legit. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that are not legit, but we're being asked to vote for them who are not legit, and then you're asking me to vote a straight ticket when probably 6 of the 9 people are not legit.
That's why I want the leader and the shepherd of the church to be up in the pulpit to reinforce who are the good and who are the bad. That's why I want the leaders.
You want us to do that?
I want you to.
I hope you have enjoyed this conversation today. We try to be real. These are 2 good friends of mine, John and Annette, and we're trying to have a real conversation that we're having in the barbershops, we're having in the salons, we're having on the street corners, and even in the church, we're having these kind of conversations. And the people who are struggling, they're saying, let's do part 2. But this has been Rev Harrison on Real Talk, and I hope you have enjoyed this conversation. We want to have real conversations conversations about real issues. And certainly there is this struggle today between faith, between politics and culture today. And a lot of us, are trying to maneuver through all of this. And what is the right thing to do? Are we following our faith, in some of the decisions that we are making when it comes to cultural issues and also when it comes to politics? So I hope you have enjoyed this today. Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison. I want to thank my two guests, John Hall and Trustee Annette Johnson, for joining me. We're going to do part 2 of this. She has already said we have to get deeper into this. This is Reverend Harrison. I pray that you have a blessed and you have an awesome day.
Amen.
This is Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast.
And be sure to check out other great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Online now at allindianapodcast.com.